With twinspires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with twinspires. And now you can race to victory with twinspires tournaments.
Welcome back to the twinspires Racing Roundtable. I'm Ashley Anderson here with James Scully and Vance Hansen. Today we're going to look back at the Grade 3 Lecomte, a Kentucky Derby prep race worth 20 points to the winner. We'll also talk the 2 Oaks prep races from the weekend. And as always, what else caught our eye from this past weekend? And really quickly, I wanted to mention before we start, Derby Week tickets are on sale on January 30th at KentuckyDerby.com. So, of course, jump in and get those tickets early for the 151st running of the Derby and any other days leading up to the Derby that you want to attend at Churchill Downs. All right, let's move over to the Grade 3 Lecomte, and I'll start with you today, Vance. Let's talk about Disco Time's win. He got up to win by a neck and earned 20 points towards the Kentucky Derby leaderboard. What were your thoughts on the Grade 3 Lecomte?
Not a compelling edition of the Lecomte. The sloppy surface was kind of producing slow times all day, and Disco Time required 1:47 and change to finish a mile and a 16th, and that was significantly slower than the 2 stakes for older horses at the same distance and slower than the first-time starter Hypnus needed to win a maiden race earlier in the card. I know Hypnus will be brought up later in our discussion. So overall, I think this group is capable of doing better, and it will in time. But for me, it's not the kind of slow race I wanted to see at this stage on the Kentucky Derby Trail. And if I had to pick one horse out of here, it probably might not necessarily be Disco Time. I think runner-up Built might be the horse to take away from this race. He did run a much quicker race, winning the Gunrunner Stakes last month. And on Saturday in the Lecomte, he was kind of buried along the inside, and his connections after the race said he appeared not to be handling the wet surface very well. And despite all of that, he did still only lose the Lecomte by a neck to Disco Time's late surge. So if I had to take one horse out of this race, it might be Built. Disco Time obviously adds some depth to the Brad Cox arsenal for the Derby, but going forward, I don't think this race is necessarily going to be a very meaningful prep.
James, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's I can agree with Vance's take. It's fair to question whether any of these Lecomte runners will make a major impact in the Triple Crown races this spring. I though will give Disco Time credit. He did win his first 2 starts at Churchill Downs, at the debut over 7 furlongs and an entry-level allowance at a 1-turn mile on the front end. And he dropped more than 10 lengths off the pace. It was a real soupy track. And then he went like 10, maybe 12 wide. So that was just really a difficult journey. And for him to overcome it, I think that's, I think it's encouraging for him. He could be a very useful type moving forward for Brad Cox. But earning an 88 Brisnet speed rating for that performance, running the slowest race. His show ran more than 2 seconds faster than Disco Time, just 1 race earlier on the program. Does not flatter Disco Time or any of the Lecomte runners in terms of this year's Kentucky Derby. Not only is the competition probably going to get stiffer for these horses in their next race, but the distances will continue to increase. One of my concerns with Disco Time coming in to his first 2-turn start here in the Lecomte was, whether he would be able to thrive at longer distances given his female family. I mean, he comes from a female family that's very slanted towards speed. He is by Not This Time, but, Not This Time with Sire Cogburn and other sprinters. So just because you're by him doesn't mean you're going to relish 9 or 10 furlongs in upcoming races. So a lot of concerns. I will say, as far as Built, maybe he wasn't handling the track, but I did think he got a better trip and had no excuses. He wore down Innovator and Deep Stretch, and if he'd had anything left, and they were coming home real slow, he could have potentially won, especially in his second stakes attempt, whereas Disco Time hadn't run since November. So I thought Innovator is a good prospect for Dwayne Lucas, and not necessarily for the Triple Crown, but that was a pretty gutsy effort for this horse. I thought was a 6 furlong sprinter. He had a 3-length lead at the 8th pole, and while I did get nailed late, he only gets beat like a half length in 3rd. So, like I said, I think all the top 3 all could be useful types moving forward, but I don't think it will be in Triple Crown races.
For what it's worth, trainer Brad Cox did act unfazed by Disco Time's slow time, which was the slowest in recent memory in the Lecomte. And he said he believes the 3-year-old will continue to progress this winter and into the spring and will get better with longer distances. But of course, we'll talk about the Kentucky Derby future wager later. A lot of the public seems to be a little bit higher on a different Brad Cox runner that we'll see this weekend in the Southwest, Patch Adams, who closed at a much shorter price in Pool 3 of the Kentucky Derby Future Wager. As far as Built, Jareth Ludbury did say that he didn't feel like Built took to the off track, so you could make an excuse for him there. And Jaime Torres, a board innovator, said that he actually thinks the horse can handle longer distances, just didn't relax enough in the beginning. So if the horse can relax, he thinks he'll be tough to beat. We'll see what happens if we see him again in a longer distance race. But I did come into the Lecomte thinking maybe Innovator was meant for shorter distances. But he does have the pedigree. Go ahead, James.
Oh, I'm sorry. Finish up. I'm so sorry.
I was going to say he does have the pedigree to potentially go longer, but he might be best cutting back a little bit slightly.
I'll say one thing about that comment with Innovator. Once again, that Lecomte, like so many races we see in America, appeared to have all these need to lead types. And Innovator got a 2-length lead after the opening quarter mile, and he ran the next half mile, the second and third quarters, in 52.18 seconds. He was out there crawling on a slow pace. So to me, he had no excuses in a sense. He had a much better trip than both Bill and the winner Disco Time. But you know, these horses that Lucas has sometimes can run themselves into being long distance types. We saw it last year with Seize the Gray. Didn't look like he'd be a distance type, and then once he won that 1 mile Derby or the 1 mile race on Derby Day, he was geared up for a mile and 3/16 come in mid-May. So the other thing I'll say, though, also about the longer distances is that, the competition, there wasn't a lot of like new competition coming in here. So like you were saying, I think the Southwest and some other races and perhaps even the Risen Star with East Avenue coming in there, these horses are just going to have to face better company in future starts.
So earlier on Fair Grounds card, we saw a Kentucky Oaks prep race, the Silver Bullet Day, which was won by Simply Joking in her second career start, and she's only faced Jake's Company so far. And then over at Aqueduct, running away, won the Busan at 1 mile and 1/8, the distance of the Kentucky Oaks. James, do you feel like one of these two horses is a better Oaks contender at the moment?
Well, I think they're both real promising. They're both each. Simply Joking has run 2 dirt races. She's won them both, and running away, her first 2 races were on turf, and since she's switched to the main track, she's 2 for 2 on dirt. So I think both fillies are very promising, but in terms of the Oaks, I would give the edge right now to Running Away because she looks better suited to me for the 1 mile and 1/8 distance. I mean, Wesley Ward didn't even contemplate running her in like a sprint race to open her career. He ran her long on turf twice, and then she broke her maiden by 5 lengths going 1 mile and 1/16 on the Churchill Downs main track. She's a son of Gunrunner out of an Unbridled Songs mare. Her second dam is Belmont winner, second maternal dam. Broodmare sire is a Fleet Alex, Belmont winner. Lots of stamina. I'm sorry. Her second dam is Summerly, who's by Summer Squall, who won the Preakness. But Summerly won the Kentucky Oaks herself. So there's a lot to like in terms of the 1 mile and 1/8 distance for Running Away if she continues to progress. She was just coming off a maiden win, didn't beat the very good company in the Basanda, and perhaps those had things her own way on the lead, but she still looked the part drawing off a deep stretch. One thing about Simply Joking, she won her debut at 6 furlongs, and then she got everything her own way, going 2 turns at a 1 mile and 70 yards. Her 2 main rivals, I thought, in the Silver Bullet Day were Chasin and Golden Gamble, and neither one of those fillies made any impact. They didn't finish in the top 3. So I do want to see Simply Joking. I don't think she's going to be looking for the lead in her next 2-turn start. So right now, I give Running the Edge Running Away a slight edge because of the 1.8 distance of the Kentucky Oaks this spring.
Do you agree, Vance?
In some ways, it's a tough question to answer. The Busanda and the Silver Bullet Day were both paceless affairs, and both fillies dictated terms throughout. So I don't think we learned a whole lot about either of them. However, I do agree with James that I would give the slight edge right now to Running Away. She does, as he said, she does have that experience over the Churchill Down Strip. She has a bit more pedigree for 9 furlongs, being by Gunrunner, and she now has the experience going 9 furlongs, winning the Busanda. Simply Joking has really come a long way in a short time. I'll give her credit for that. As you said, winning a pair of stakes in the span of 1 month. And trainer Whit Beckman has got a couple of nice fillies pointing for the Oaks, and I think we're going to hear a lot more from him in the years to come. And he might still be bringing to the Oaks 2 quality contenders.
One of them is Her Laugh, who will be in the Martha Washington this weekend, so definitely watch for that. Simply Joking, I'll admit, I tried to stand against this filly in the Silver Bullet Day. Looking at pedigree, I didn't think 1.70 miles was too much out of her realm of distance, being by Practical Joke. I will say on her dam side, her dam sire won the Suburban at 1.25 miles and also placed in the Traverse and the Super Derby. So she does have stamina on that side, but I'm with you, James. Slight advantage to Wesley Ward's runner, having won now at 1.8 miles, and also being that her dam is out of Summerly. Trying to think how to say that. Pedigree can be a little confusing when you're trying to talk pedigree. And she did have an 88% speed figure. Running Away had a slightly lower speed figure compared to Simply Joking, racing a little bit longer, but she earned a 117 class rating, which is a little bit better than what Simply Joking got at a 116 for the Silver Bullet Day. We'll see what happens. My concern too is, does Running Away need the lead? We've only seen her in her 4-star, she's gone straight to the early lead. But Wesley Ward did originally tell Sahin Savachi not to go for the early lead because he was worried a lot of other runners were going to go for that early lead as well. But it worked out to just go straight to the front and win gate to wire 2 straight races now. I'm curious to see, though, if she doesn't get the early lead, what this horse can do.
Yeah, that's a fair point, because right now she looks like a need the lead type. She's got to show that versatility to sit just off the speed, because you're not always going to get everything your own way in these races. And Simply Joking, I mean, she rallied off the pace to win that debut at 6 furlongs. She just wound up on the lead. I thought it was a pretty heady ride, once again, by Jamie Torres. He's on both speed horses Saturday, in the Silver Bullet Day and in the Lecomte. And he gave both horses their best chance being in the right spot, I thought, especially with Simply Joking. She just loved it and had plenty left for the stretch.
Let's move on to what else caught our eye from the weekend. Vance, what stood out to you?
Well, I'll bring up Pool 3 of the Kentucky Derby Future Wager. Last week, James and I penned a blog for the TwinSpires Edge, and in there I endorsed a preemptive backing of Patch Adams in advance of the Southwest Stakes this week. And I basically mentioned, I think, both him and Gaming. And it sounded like a lot of other people were thinking the same thing, because Patch Adams was extremely well backed in Pool 3 this weekend, closing at 12-1. That might prove to be a bargain depending on how he races in the Southwest on Saturday. But I myself couldn't quite bite at that price. It was just a little too low for me, so I did not dive in as expected. Meanwhile, Gaming, who is going to be one of the top 2 favorites in the Southwest, he was a lot cooler in Pool 3. He was sent off at 38-1, and I know he's coming off of a poor effort in the Los Al Futurity. Trainer Bob Baffert has said, well, he got unsettled in the paddock before the race. It's a toss-out. So 38-1 on Gaming might prove to be a good price depending on how he does this Saturday. We'll find out about those 2. And then the other one that caught my eye was Citizen Bowl, who is expected to be named champion juvenile colt at the Eclipse Award ceremony on Thursday. Bettors have been kind of lukewarm to him in the last couple of pools. He closed as the 3rd individual choice at 16-1 in Pool 2, and Pool 3 this past weekend, he closed his fourth individual choice at 17-1. So it's kind of rare in recent years for the reigning 2-year-old champion not to be driving the Derby discussion at this point during the winter. But I don't think he should be entirely dismissed either, given his accomplishments last season. So if you grabbed him at 16-17-1, you shouldn't be too displeased with that for now.
So you're saying I thought you made a huge bet on Patch, and that's why Patch Adams, and that's why his odds dropped.
Did you get that press release?
I am curious. I don't know if either of you would know this off the top of your head, but Barnes closing at 6-1 in Pool 3 compared to other previous Pool 3s. Is that a significantly lower number compared to other individual favorites closing in Pool 3?
That's a good.
Just seems very low this early.
I'd have to go back and research this, but I know that American Pharoah and Nyquist, who both won the Derby, were in all three pools, and I don't think any of them were like 6-1 in Pool 3. That might be the lowest we've seen. But I mean, I'm not 100% certain either. So,
well, James, I know there was a 3-year-old that caught your eye that was not on this future wager, but maybe will be in Pool 4. So tell me about.
Yeah, Fair Grounds. First off, on these Lecomte undercard, then on the Risen Star next Saturday, and even on the Louisiana Derby in late March, the best 3-year-old maidens on the ground are pointing for these maiden special weight races on these big race day cards. Sometimes you'll even get a good one ship in with a stakes horse for one of their maiden races at a route. And Saturday, we only had one open maiden special weight for 3-year-old males, and that went to Hypnus. And Hypnus, he's number 6. He's breaking from post 5 here. You'll see him. He drops back to mid-pack with Brian Hernandez. But he's a colt, overlooked at 16-1 in this race for Kenny McPeak, because Kenny McPeak just doesn't win very often first time out. But Hypnus, son of Into Mischief, out of a mare by Uncle Mo, has just a fantastic breeding for a Derby distance, a good mix of speed and stamina. And McPeak had been bullish on Hypnus training up into this race. I listened to a radio show, a podcast Friday morning, and heard somebody talking about how they had talked to McPeak, and he really liked how Hypnus was training. And he really ran to it. Like I said, these maiden races, this was, I thought, a pretty solid field. By my quick glance, these maiden races on the last 3 years on the Lecomte undercard have produced at least 7 stakes winners. And Hypnus really has all the makings, I think, of a future stakes type. You'll see him here show his turn of foot on the far turn to go after Yinzer, a $1.1 million Steve Asmussen colt that I liked in this race. But we'll see when they turn for home. He proves no match to Hypnus. And I just say, like I said, he's out of a grade 1 winning mare who's by Uncle Mo. And watch his turn of foot in the stretch. Kenny McPeak is not messing around with like an entry-level allowance. He thinks Hypnus is a serious Kentucky Derby type horse. And he is going to, we're going to see him on the far outside here. And we're going to see, and he's going to bring him right back either in the Risen Star Stakes at Fair Grounds on February 15th or the Rebel Stakes at Oakwan a week later. In fact, McPeak said of Hypnus, he's never been outmatched in the morning. It wasn't a big surprise to me. So, that was one thing that he was doing last year with Orpeda Anna. He was talking all this like, you better bring a mountain lion to the Oaks because I'm bringing a grizzly. And now he's doing all this all over again with Hypnus. So I know he's real keen on the colt. Should be. That was a real impressive race. His time for a mile and a 16th was 1:46.33, more than a half second faster than disco time later on the card. And another exciting prospect for Into Mischief. Into Mischief had 6 of the 39 individual interests in Pool 3 last weekend, including 4 of the top 6 betting choices. Barnes, Patch Adams, Citizen Bull, and Sovereignty was 21-1. So he is absolutely loaded. He's a 2-time Kentucky Derby winning sire, and Hypnus is another real promising type for McPeak. Brian Hernandez, and Sire into Mischief.
He had a nice 92 Brisnet speed figure on debut, and he beat Cromwell and Doroteo, who we talked about in the jury. Those were two maidens that Darren was excited to watch, and they ended up getting beat 2.5 lengths by Hypnos.
Yeah,
So
got humbled in the stretch. I was just like, at the top of the stretch, I was surprised to see him offer that acceleration. You don't see that too often at first asking in a route, so something really to build upon.
To close out, I wanted to mention a couple of jockeys with big performances at Fair Grounds this week. Of course, the turf stakes were taken off the turf because of the weather. And to start off, I wanted to mention the ride by Joel Rosario aboard Stir Crazy, who won the off-the-turf Marie Krantz Memorial by 5 3/4 lengths. This was if you watch the whole race, this horse had a slow start, was squeezed between horses and was near the back of the pack. And then Rosario saved ground around the second turn and closed on the leaders, then saw a hole between two horses on the outside, thought that he was going to take that route, but then quickly realized it was going to close too soon. So he went up the rail, was able to squeeze up the rail and then pull away by more than 5 lengths. So a really, really exciting ride to watch if you go back and watch the whole replay. Also wanted to talk about Florent Giroux and Brad Cox continuing to be a winning combo at Fairgrounds. James, you mentioned it with Hit Show, was faster than Disco Time, who Flo was aboard Disco Time and Hit Show. And with Hit Show, he was regaining the mount. 2 starts back, Hit Show had a different rider in the Clark and then failed as the favorite, was about 4 lengths back in third. This time around with Flo back aboard, it was the 5th win from 6 recent mounts on Hit Show for Florent Giroux. And last year he had a 3-win streak with 3 graded stakes as well. So he's been doing very well with Hit Show. And finally, Frankie Dettori celebrated his first victory at Fairgrounds on his first ever mount, and that was aboard Kavod, which Kavod had a stalking 5-length victory. He was the 4th choice in the field and now has nearly $1 million in earnings from 39 lifetime starts. And we have a little clip from Frankie as well after that race.
Great ride. You had the horse.
Yeah, listen, nice to be here. It was always my got to tick this box to get to New Orleans and Fairground, and I'm pleased to be here. John has been a good supporter of mine, and I had some nice wins for him. He had plenty of faith on this horse, and he pretty much did everything I wanted him to do, and he won well. So I'm no longer a Fairground virgin. I had my first win. I'm very pleased.
Well, I hope you hit the French Quarter tonight and celebrate, Frankie. Great to have you here.
I will.
That's great.
Frankie always with the really good sound bites.
I faded Hit Show because he was coming off a well-beaten, non-threatening third in the Clark, and I just didn't see how he would move forward, cutting back to a mile and a 16th for this. But I thought that was arguably the best. He and Hypnos had the 2 best performances, but I thought both horses just closed like there was more to see from them, and very exciting races.
And now I believe is going to show up in a grade 1 next start.
I thought he was going to go overseas given his ownership, but Cox mentioned this getting a grade 1 win, so the Santa Anita handicap on March 1st sounds like the target for Hit Show.
We'll be excited to see what he does. That's all the time we have today for the Racing Roundtable. Again, January 30th, Derby Week tickets go on sale. Head to KentuckyDerby.com, and we will be back next Tuesday with more stakes recaps, and we will see you then.
When it comes to horse racing, you can never have too much information. With twinspires, you can place your bets with confidence, whether you use handicapping insights like our Brisnet speed ratings, prime power and past performances, the guidance of our experts' top picks, or just choose a name that catches your eye. Yes! No matter how you pick your horse, bet with twinspires. And now you can race to victory with twinspires tournaments.